My parents demanded I give my welcome party dress to my sister, who always destroys my things. Am I the expletive for finally telling the truth? I, 22F, severely need help about a matter involving my family, notably my sister Susan, 24F. I've been a long-time lurker, but recent circumstances have compelled me to finally share my tale. Please bear with me, as this may be a bit long. I'm actually shivering as I type this, partially out of rage and partly out of dread of what will happen if they find out I'm asking for help. I recently graduated from college and got my dream job at a top technology business. Everything was going well. I worked hard in college, maintaining a 3.9 GPA with a partial scholarship and securing this position after numerous rounds of competitive interviews. The organization is well known for its positive work environment and ample prospects for advancement. After years of walking on eggshells at home, I was truly pleased to begin my working life. The welcome reception for new staff is tomorrow evening. It's a formal function where new employees can meet top management and team leaders. Several VIPs will be there, and it is recognized to be an important networking event that can impact your future career path inside the organization. I worked part-time for months and saved up enough money to buy appropriate attire. It is not ostentatious but rather professional and stylish. It cost me $400, which equates to numerous hours of tutoring and weekend shifts at a nearby cafe. My parents, both 45, didn't contribute anything, which was not surprising given their history of preferring my sister. My sister Susan has always been the golden child. She is currently unemployed after failing to complete college twice. She spends the majority of her time partying and posting on social media, while our parents cover her expenses without question. They've spent thousands on her shopping sprees, expensive devices, and even a car, which she crashed within 3 months. Meanwhile, since high school, I've had to work part-time jobs to cover basic expenses such as school supplies and clothing. The inequality in treatment began early. When I was 5, my aunt gave me a tiny art set for Christmas. Susan threw a violent rage, so my parents took it away and handed it to her, despite the fact that she had previously received other expensive gifts. They told me I needed to learn to share, that Susan was more sensitive. This set the tone for our entire life. Growing up, Susan would frequently throw temper tantrums if I received something pleasant. When I was 12, I won a science competition at school. Instead of celebrating, Susan had a meltdown because she wasn't getting enough attention. What was my parents' solution? They took away my prize and certificate to avoid causing Susan concern. Susan couldn't stand seeing me on stage, so they forced me to miss the award ceremony. This pattern persisted throughout my life. Any accomplishment or enjoyment of mine was viewed as a threat to Susan's well-being. As we became older, the situation worsened. Susan had a habit of removing my belongings without permission: clothes, books, electronics, nothing was off limits. If I protested, my parents would chastise me for being selfish and insensitive to my sister's sentiments. They would remark things like, "Susan is sensitive and requires additional support. You're stronger, so you must compromise." When I acquired my first smartphone at 16, which I paid for with my tutoring money, Susan demanded it because hers was outdated, despite the fact that it was only 6 months old. My folks made me swap phones with her. There were numerous occurrences like this. Susan would physically assault me if she didn't get her way. She once pushed me down the stairs when I refused to allow her to use my laptop for a social media broadcast. I sprained my ankle, but my parents did not take me to the hospital. Instead, they instructed me to remain in my room and not provoke Susan further. Another time, Mom slapped me in the face at a family gathering because I was getting more compliments on my academic achievements. My parents called me aside and chastised me for showing off and making Susan unhappy. The emotional assault was far more severe than the physical. Susan would frequently tell me that I was unwanted and that our parents had me solely to give her a sibling. She made fun of my appearance, circulated rumors about me at school, and even ruined my friendships. When I was 15, I had my first boyfriend. Susan claimed I was cheating on him. I wasn't, and even showed him modified screenshots of phony chats. He broke up with me, and when I confronted Susan, she simply laughed. Our parents? They said I should never have begun dating since it made Susan lonely. Throughout all of this, I learned to keep my head down and concentrate on my schoolwork. My dream of financial independence kept me going during the toughest moments. I stopped expecting support or validation from my family. I even intended to move out as soon as I started earning money, hoping to finally be free of this toxic environment. I immersed myself in schoolwork and extracurricular activities, doing everything I could to avoid being at home. During college, I believed things would improve because I was living in the dorms, but Susan would frequently drop by unexpectedly, demand money or clothes, and throw fits if I refused. My parents would call and chastise me for neglecting my sister, despite the fact that she was meant to be the older sibling. They even tried to force me to drop out after Susan failed her classes for the second time, stating that it was unfair for me to complete my education while she couldn't. But yesterday, everything came to a head. Susan and our parents stormed into my room 1 hour before I was supposed to try on my dress for final changes. She demanded that I give her the dress for her next job interview. When I declined, she screamed about how I was arrogant for having a job before her, how I was purposely attempting to make her appear bad, and how I'd always been a selfish, attention-seeking brat. Our parents obviously supported her. "Your sister needs this more than you," Mom remarked, using the guilt-tripping tone I've come to despise. "She has interviews scheduled, and this garment would greatly increase her confidence. You can wear something else to the celebration. Why are you always so difficult?" I tried to explain how important this event was to my career, how I had saved for months to buy the outfit, and how this was my last chance to make a good first impression at my new job. But Dad cut me off, his face flushed with rage. "Stop being so difficult," he snapped. "You understand how difficult this time has been for Susan. Why do you always have to make it about yourself? Can't you think about your sister's emotions for once? What is the worst part?" Susan had previously returned her own beautiful dress, purchased by our parents for $2,000, and used the money to buy makeup and a new iPhone cover. She didn't even have any actual interviews arranged. She only wanted my dress because it was mine. Later, I overheard her on the phone with a friend, joking about how she was going to take care of her sister's attitude issues. What distinguishes this situation from prior ones is that my grandmother, 71F, expects images from the welcome celebration. She's always been more sensible than my parents, but living in another state means she's not as familiar with our family dynamics. She explicitly requested that I send her images of my clothing, expressing her pride that I had landed such a good position right out of college. She even considered framing the photo for her homeroom. I am currently locked in my room, trying to figure out what to do. My hands are trembling while I type this. My sister is still having a fit outside, yelling that I am ruining her life and that she will make me regret being born. I can hear her hammering on my door and threatening to smash it down. My parents are texting me to stop being selfish and to think about family harmony. They're threatening to ground me, yes, at 22, and confiscate my phone if I don't cooperate. Should I just give in again to maintain the peace? I am aware that if I do not comply, they may physically compel me to hand over the dress, or Susan may trash it out of spite, as she has done with my belongings in the past. But I'm so tired of being the family's scapegoat. This welcoming celebration meant the world to me. It's my first step toward independence, a chance to begin establishing a life free of their destructive influence. I can't help but worry if telling my grandmother the truth about what's going on will make a difference. She's always been nice to me, but my parents have taught me that contacting relatives would bring shame to the family, and that no one would believe me anyhow. They have spent years telling me that their treatment is normal, and that I am to blame for not being more flexible. I am lost and unsure what to do. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Am I irrational in wanting to keep my own outfit, which I purchased with my own money? How do I approach this scenario without causing further controversy but also without giving up something that is really important to me? I feel like I'm having a panic attack just thinking about approaching them. The welcoming celebration is tomorrow evening, so I have to make a decision fast. I've worked so hard to get here, and it's upsetting that my accomplishment is being overshadowed by my sister's demands and my parents' supporting conduct. The idea of showing up in something inappropriate and perhaps harming my professional reputation is worrisome, but so is the prospect of another violent encounter with Susan. Thank you for reading this far. I've never told anyone the whole amount of what goes on in our family, so writing it all down seems both terrifying and liberating. I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I'm overreacting or if I'm insane for believing this isn't typical. Right now, any advice or assistance would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left positive comments on my first post. A lot has transpired in the past 24 hours, and everything has altered. Yesterday, after I posted, my grandmother called to inquire about the welcome celebration and pictures. When I started making excuses, she realized something was wrong. She insisted on bringing me out for lunch today, claiming to require assistance with grocery shopping. My parents couldn't turn her down without raising suspicions. At a quiet cafe away from home, my grandma held my hands and whispered, "Now tell me everything." Her gentle tones smashed through all of my barricades. For the first time, I revealed the entire truth about our family dynamics. I told her how Susan ruined my school projects, shredded my college prep books, and bleached my prom outfit. I revealed years of secrets that I had kept buried out of fear and shame. My grandma listened without interrupting, but I could see her hands trembling in rage. When I concluded, she confessed that she and other relatives had suspected difficulties for years but had been unable to prove them because my parents always presented a perfect family picture at gatherings. Right there at the cafe, Mother began calling family members, including my aunts, uncles, and family acquaintances. As she made these calls, my phone started vibrating nonstop with texts from my family. My mother sent more anxious texts. "How can you tell lies about our family after everything we've done for you? You're making your sister cry again." Susan's communications began with a guilt trip. "I cannot believe you would do this to me. You know how sensitive I am." They swiftly moved to threats. "You better tell Grandma you lied, or I'll make you regret it. Remember your prom dress?" "This will be worse." Dad joined in. "Your mother is having a breakdown because of you. Come home right now and mend the mess you've made." But this time, their threats had a different effect on me. Each message proved what I had told my granny. While they were making these threats, my grandma showed me scores of encouraging texts from family members who were finally realizing the truth. The family has responded overwhelmingly. My aunt apologized for believing Susan's falsehoods about how cruel I was to her. My uncle promised to help me find an apartment close to my workplace. Another aunt recommended therapy and even offered to cover the fees. My grandmother made it clear that she will not allow them to scare me longer. She contacted her lawyer and purchased me a new outfit for the welcome celebration, which is now safely stored at my aunt's house. Even family friends have begun to share their observations of Susan's troubling behavior at gatherings, including a child psychologist who had observed warning flags years ago. I am writing this from my aunt's place. My parents are still sending me texts, threatening to cut me off financially, which is immaterial because I support myself, and telling everyone what a bad daughter I am. Susan's latest threat was to ruin my job, but it no longer scares me. For the first time, I am not facing their assault alone. Tomorrow, I'll go to the welcome reception in my new dress, with my aunt driving me there for safety. My grandma instructed me to chronicle everything from now on, including Susan's threats. Thank you, Reddit, for letting me see that what I've normalized isn't typical at all. I'll post another update when I can. Update 2. I never anticipated things to escalate so soon following my last update. I'm writing this from my grandmother's house with a broken nose and confused feelings about what's transpired. The day following my welcome celebration, my grandmother surprised me with a new MacBook for work. She had it transported to my aunt's place first, knowing Susan's track record with my belongings. When I returned home to pack some clothing, I assumed my parents and Susan would be gone. I was mistaken. Susan waited in my room. She'd learned about the laptop via social media, where my cousin had posted a congratulations message about my new job and mentioned the gift. What occurred next still seems strange. "So, you're taking bribes from Grandma now?" Susan sat on my bed, browsing through her phone, her voice strangely quiet. "Do you think you can turn the entire family against us?" I tried to hastily get some clothing and leave, but she was blocking the door. "Do you remember when we were kids, and Mom always said that sharing is caring?" She smiled, but her eyes remained icy. "Grandma also needs to learn that lesson. Hand over the laptop." When I declined, stating that I needed it for my new job, she pulled my hair and banged my face against the doorframe. I heard a crack and felt warm blood rush out of my nose. The agony was excruciating, but what hurt worse was hearing my parents' reaction. When they heard the ruckus, they came upstairs, but instead of assisting me, Mom began yelling at me for provoking Susan. Dad simply stood there, saying I should have known better than to flaunt my new gift in front of my sister. Fortunately, my aunt insisted on waiting outside in her car. When she heard the shouting, she entered and discovered me bleeding. What followed was like a scene from a movie. My aunt phoned both the police and my grandmother. Within an hour, my grandma came along with 2 additional aunts and an uncle. The cops gathered accounts and photos of my injuries. Susan kept changing her tale, first saying it was an accident, then that I had assaulted her first, and ultimately breaking down and yelling that I deserved it for stealing her family. The most shocking development was not the police involvement, but the community response. While I was in the hospital getting my nose treated, word went throughout our extended family and social networks. My parents' carefully cultivated picture of the ideal family completely shattered. Their country club membership was quietly cancelled. Mom's club barred her from their weekly sessions. Dad's golf mates were suddenly too busy to play. Susan's few remaining acquaintances began relaying anecdotes about her violent outbursts that they had witnessed over time. My parents suffered greatly from social isolation. They'd spent years promoting their image as ideal parents with 2 daughters, the sensitive artist Susan and the difficult one, me. Everyone now knows the truth, and they are unable to handle it. They've been calling relatives nonstop in an effort to minimize the harm. Their latest claim is that I'm having a mental breakdown and fabricating stories about Susan. But nobody believes it anymore, especially after the police report. Susan's attitude toward the social ramifications has been especially worrying. She set up several social media identities to harass me and disseminate misinformation about our family situation. She even came up to my office, attempting to convince my new coworkers that I am unstable. Fortunately, my manager was aware of the issue through my uncle, who works in human resources, and had security take her away. My grandmother's lawyer assisted me in filing for a restraining order against Susan. The proof was overwhelming: years of documented events, witness accounts from family and friends, and now police reports. Photos of my injuries. I'm currently residing at my grandmother's house, and the difference with my previous existence is startling. Nobody here advises me to stop provoking my sister. Nobody insists that I give up my possessions in order to keep the peace. I can leave my laptop on my desk without worry of it disappearing. My extended family's support continues to astound me. Cousins I haven't spoken with in years have reached out to share their impressions about Susan's behavior at family gatherings. My aunt's acquaintance, a therapist, helped me comprehend that what I was going through was continuous abuse, enabled by my parents. Meanwhile, my parents' social circle is diminishing. Their neighbors no longer stop and speak. Mom's social media posts about praying for her troubled daughters are received with silence or harsh criticism. Dad's business associates have begun to distance themselves, concerned about his judgment after learning how he handled the family problem. Susan's work prospects, which were previously poor, have become virtually non-existent in our society. Word spreads quickly, and her violent outbursts are now widely known. She blames me for wrecking her life, but more people recognize her threats for what they are. I am still absorbing all that has transpired. My nose will heal, but witnessing my parents' carefully constructed facade disintegrate has been both satisfying and heartbreaking. They are dealing with the natural consequences of their decisions, and no amount of trickery will help them this time. I'll provide another update as I have more information to offer. Thank you, everybody, for your encouragement. It helped me hold firm when Susan requested the laptop, even though the repercussions were unpleasant. Sometimes things have to get worse before they can improve. Update number 3. Thank you for your support on my prior updates. It's been a hectic few days, and I wanted to highlight some important developments. My healing is progressing well. The swelling in my nose has subsided, but the bruise appears worse. The doctor thinks there will be no permanent harm, which is reassuring given my future work presentations. Living at my grandmother's house has become permanent, and the contrast with my previous existence is stark. This morning, I unintentionally spilled a coffee mug and found myself flinching, expecting screams and punishment. Instead, I received my grandmother's polite concern and assistance cleaning up. The community's response has been incredible. Mom's social media presence collapsed when a prayer request post about her troubled daughters backfired. Susan's previous students swarmed the comment section with their own accounts of her bullying and violence. Dad's business has suffered a big blow. Several long-term clients have gone, and his partners convened an emergency meeting to evaluate his situation after discovering his participation in facilitating Susan's actions. They are especially concerned about his judgment in leadership roles. Susan has been on a downward spiral since the restraining order. She set up other phony profiles to harass me and my supporters but unintentionally posted from her main account, providing additional proof for the court case. My aunt made a stunning revelation. My parents had frequently refused to allow Susan to get psychological care when she was younger. They were more concerned with preserving their ideal family image than with resolving the real challenges. My parents' attempts to regain control backfired spectacularly. Their family meal to clear the air was only attended by 2 distant relatives. Mom's best friend publicly unfriended her after viewing the police report images. Dad was asked to step down from church leadership, and Mom's gardening group decided to continue without her. The most affirming moment occurred when my high school counselor contacted me, apologizing for not doing more when she recognized indicators of abuse years ago. My parents had persuaded her that my reclusive conduct was teenage rebellion and Susan's violence was artistic temperament. My workplace has been quite supportive. Following Susan's attempt to make trouble, my manager added additional security precautions, and my coworkers have been understanding of my predicament. My uncle published a public post yesterday documenting years of disturbing behavior he had witnessed. His post went viral in our neighborhood, resulting in additional social ramifications. My parents' reputation in the area has shattered. Mom was ousted from the Homeowners Association board, and they can't go shopping without being followed by murmurs and glances. Susan's victim narrative is failing. She had a meltdown at our aunt's church when someone mentioned my name, confirming what everyone had heard about her conduct. I'm still adjusting to living without constant fear. My grandma enrolled me in therapy, which has helped me appreciate how unusual my home life was. Our lawyer's response to my parents' latest cease and desist letter regarding spreading falsehoods included police report images and witness statements. The help from this community has been tremendous. You made me realize that I wasn't insane for believing my situation was unusual. I'll publish a final update after everything has settled down, but for now, I'm focusing on recuperating and starting a new life. It's incredible how much energy you have when you're not always walking on eggshells. Update number 4. It has been 6 months since my previous update, and I believe it is finally time to conclude this chapter of my life. Thank you to everyone who has followed my journey and provided support. I'm presently prospering in my profession, having recently received my first promotion for leading a successful project. My team leader applauded my attention to detail and calm attitude to crisis management, skills I honed while navigating my family's chaos for years. My personal life has changed completely. I've moved into my own place, but I still see my grandmother on a daily basis. The first night in my new place, I realized I could put my possessions anywhere without fear of them being stolen or destroyed. Simple things, such as having my own space and making decisions without concern, feel like valuable gifts. Susan was recently diagnosed with a number of mental health issues after being compelled to undergo evaluation as part of an anger management program. She is currently in a specialist treatment facility, not by choice, but as a condition of her probation following another violent event that did not involve me. My parents have faced serious penalties. Dad's firm encouraged him to retire early after big clients expressed worries about his judgment. Mom has become a social outcast in their neighborhood. Their attempts to join a new religious congregation were thwarted when members of their previous church revealed their background, selling their home and moving to another state for a fresh start. But their reputation precedes them in various areas they've investigated. The continual chilly shoulders and whispered remarks became too much for them. The most unexpected development has been the ripple effect among our extended family. My tale inspired 2 cousins to speak out about their own experiences with family abuse. It's as if breaking the veil of silence has enabled others to finally recognize their own hardships. Work has become my haven. I just created a support system for new employees, and my manager applauded my unique perspective on building friendly settings. The irony is not lost on me that my previous difficulties have become a source of professional strength. My parents made one more attempt at reconciliation last month, sending a beautifully worded letter through their new lawyer recommending family therapy. My grandmother's lawyer simply said all communication must go through legal channels, and I am not interested in reconciliation. The greatest rewarding shift has been in my interactions with my extended relatives. Sunday dinners at my grandmother's place have become a ritual full of real laughter and joy. My aunts and uncles tell me things from my childhood that my parents twisted or kept buried, allowing me to regain some of my heritage. I've begun mentoring at a local youth center, working with teenagers from challenging home backgrounds. One girl just informed me that my tale inspired her to come up about her own sister's abuse. My grandma has been my biggest supporter, demonstrating what genuine family love looks like, unconditional but with appropriate boundaries. Susan's restraining order is now permanent, and she is legally prohibited from approaching my employment or apartment. The community's response has served as a lesson in social fairness. My parents and Susan faced no legal consequences other than the restraining order, but the social isolation and loss of status were more effective than any court sentence. I'm finally creating the life I've always wanted but never thought possible. I have a successful career, a supportive social circle, and most importantly, peace of mind. I no longer react to sudden noises or apologize for my existence. This will be my last update. To anyone in a similar situation, it is never too late to speak up and reclaim their life. Sometimes the most difficult step is believing you deserve better. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My parents kicked me out because of my sister. 6 years later, they're asking for help to support her and her 4 young children. I, 32F, am currently in charge of significant commercial development projects around New England as a successful architect at a prominent Boston firm. Nathan, a 34-year-old man who works as a project manager in sustainable development, is my fiancé. Our wedding is scheduled for the following year. On the surface, my life appears to be ideal. I have rewarding work, a wonderful relationship, and a lovely craftsman-style home that I designed extensive modifications for. However, I'm questioning everything because of a complex family situation that recently reached a breaking point. I must go into great depth about my family history in order for you to comprehend the current circumstance. I was raised in a Connecticut suburb in an upper-middle-class household. My mother, Phoebe, 56F, taught high school at a private school until she left 6 years ago, and my father, Richard, 58M, works as a corporate lawyer at a reputable business. Ashley, my younger sister, who is 30F, has always been the star of our family. Favoritism was evident from my earliest recollections, even if my parents would strongly dispute it if questioned. I received consecutive A's on my report card when I was 8 and Ashley was 6, and I was simply informed, "That's expected of you." While Ashley received B's and was commended and brought out for ice cream because she was trying her best. Throughout our childhood, this trend persisted. Ashley's meager efforts were widely praised, while my accomplishments were anticipated and frequently disregarded. When I was 15, I recall one specific occurrence. I had been working on my design project for months, frequently staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning in preparation for a national high school architectural competition. I received a minor scholarship as a result of placing second nationally. Ashley had an ordinary soccer match that day, so my parents didn't even make it to the award ceremony. "That's nice," they replied, barely taking their eyes off the TV as I brought my award home before turning back to Ashley's dramatic account of how she nearly scored a goal. Even though my parents were clearly biased, I did well in school and in my personal life. I led multiple community service projects, kept a 4.0 GPA, and served as president of the student body. In the meantime, as Ashley approached adolescence, her actions became more alarming. When she began to slip out when I was 14, my parents told me to keep a better eye on her. She was caught stealing high-end makeup when she was 15, and they accused me of not providing her my allowance money, even though she clearly needed it. The assumption that I should put Ashley's needs and interests ahead of my own was the most annoying aspect, not only the partiality. My part-time job at a local design firm, where I made coffee and filed papers, allowed me to save up $3,000 when I was 16. I intended to use it for a Columbia University summer architecture course. My parents, however, borrowed my cash to assist cover the repairs after Ashley, who wasn't supposed to be driving, smashed her boyfriend's car. They never fulfilled their commitment to reimburse me. I lost the chance to improve my college applications and the summer program opportunity. I was able to gain admission to a prominent architectural program in spite of these obstacles. In order to save money, my parents agreed to let me live at home while I was in college and to assist with my tuition. They wanted me around to assist in handling Ashley, who was now in high school and becoming more disobedient by the day, so this wasn't totally selfless. I recall making several attempts to speak with Ashley about her behavior, but actions. One exchange is particularly memorable. 3 months or so passed before everything collapsed. At 3 o'clock in the morning on a school night, I discovered her slinking back into the house. Assisting Ashley to climb through the window, I whispered, "Ashley, you need to be more careful. You're in your senior year, and colleges look at more than just grades." She retorted, "Stop trying to be mom. Just because your life is boring and all about buildings doesn't mean mine has to be." In hindsight, I ought to have anticipated this. Ashley spent a lot of time with Tyler, her 17-year-old ex-boyfriend, who was known for being trouble. My parents viewed everyone I dated with extreme mistrust, yet they were surprisingly lenient about their relationship. My mother accused me of being envious of Ashley's vibrant social life when I attempted to voice my concerns about Tyler. 6 years ago, everything drastically altered. One day, Ashley, a senior in high school at the time, came home and declared she was expecting a child. The father was Tyler. I can still clearly recall that night, Ashley sitting on the couch with a look of fear and defiance on her face, my father pacing the living room, and my mother sobbing uncontrollably. In the confusion that ensued, my parents somehow twisted the facts to accuse me of failing to keep a closer eye on her. My mother arrived in my room the following day with news that would forever alter my course in life. Without even looking at me, she stated, "You have to move out by the end of the week." I couldn't understand. What? Why? With Tyler moving in and a baby on the way, the house isn't large enough for all of us. Ashley needs your space. What approach to support your sister at this trying period would be to move out? I made an effort to reason with her. During my third year of college, I worked part-time at a nearby architecture business and maintained a 3.9 GPA. She insisted on finding me a cheap apartment close to the university, even though I just requested a few months. The worst thing was when my father summoned me to his home office the next day. He delivered another hit while seated behind his enormous oak desk, which he had always used to frighten clients. "We won't be able to continue your tuition," he stated in a cold, clinical tone. "That money is necessary for Ashley and the child. You'll figure something out since you're intelligent." I stood there, looking at the man who had always emphasized the value of education and accountability, suddenly severing his daughter's ties after she had done everything correctly. The irony hurt. I packed my things that evening. My father stopped me in the driveway as I was packing the final box into my car. I briefly believed that he might reconsider. Rather, he gave me a piece of paper with a list of local women's shelters on it. He said, "Just in case," and went back inside. The next phase of my life was the darkest. For 4 months, I lived in my car, and for safety, parked every night in a different Walmart lot. In the architecture firm where I worked part-time, I would change in public toilets, take a shower in the campus gym, and keep my business attire in my locker. I took a second job working as a late-night barista, frequently juggling multiple jobs while attending classes. I asked a few family members for assistance, but they all turned me down. My 53-year-old aunt, Susan, who had always expressed her pride in my accomplishments, informed me that she didn't want to become embroiled in family strife. According to my grandparents, they were too old to handle the matter. I occasionally went days without eating a decent meal, barely making it on protein bars and coffee. I frequently slept off at my desk while working on my homework in the college library, which was open 24 hours a day. I kept my GPA the same in spite of everything. My escape was architecture. I put all of my suffering and willpower into my designs. My parents never once called to see whether I was still alive during this time. Ashley didn't either. After learning that she had given birth to a boy, I made one phone call, but it was awkward and short. After that, there was no communication for 6 years. I had to start over in my life. Throughout those 6 years, despite working 60-hour weeks and living in my car and then a small room in a dubious area of town, I finished with honors. A famous Boston business was interested in my final thesis project, which was a design for a sustainable community center with transitional housing that received multiple prizes. Living in a small studio apartment and trying to save as much money as I could, I began my career as an entry-level architect. Every advancement was a triumph over my past. I was managing my own projects for 4 years. My area of expertise was sustainable commercial development, and I gained recognition for my creative ideas that put the needs of people and the environment first. 3 years ago, Nathan and I met at a seminar on sustainable development. During the Q&A portion of his presentation on green construction projects, I disputed one of his claims. He invited me to continue the conversation over coffee rather than becoming defensive. Dinner evolved from that coffee into the most wholesome and encouraging relationship I've ever experienced. Nathan is well aware of my background. He was present when I purchased my first home after getting expelled. When I signed the paperwork and broke down because I was so overcome by the fact that I finally had a place where no one could make me leave, he held me. He supported my idea to refurbish it and make it an environment that reflected all of my accomplishments over the years. Through mutual contacts, I occasionally learned tidbits about Ashley's life. Shortly after the birth of their baby, she wed Tyler, but the two of them split up after 6 months. By that time, she was expecting her second kid, but the father had entirely vanished after learning of the pregnancy. She had another kid with Marcus, the man she married 2 years later, but their marriage failed when she had an affair. She is now pregnant once more and doesn't seem to know who the father is. I got a call yesterday from an unidentified number right before bed. After 6 years of stillness, my mother called. She initially pretended nothing had happened, inquiring about my life and showing interest in my accomplishments. I briefly felt like that young child again, excited to tell my mother about my achievements. I even began to tell her about my recent promotion to senior architect and my engagement. Then she revealed the true reason she had called. In order to assist Ashley and her kids, my parents want me to return to Connecticut. They say they're too old to care for 4 small children, and my father will shortly be retiring. They even had the gall to claim that, as the successful sister, it is my duty to support the family. My mother said, "You've always been the responsible one," with that cunning tone I so vividly remembered in her voice. Now more than ever, Ashley needs her big sister. Family must remain united. A chilly chuckle erupted within me. Family have to stick together, I said. And where was this family when I was sleeping in my car? When I was barely eating and working 2 jobs? When there was nobody for me to turn to? I went on despite my mother's attempt to stop me. You absolutely abandoned me, kicked me out, and stopped paying for my schooling in order to help Ashley. You expect me to sacrifice my life, career, and relationship in order to clean up your mess once more, now that she has continued to make bad decisions and you're sick of dealing with the fallout? I hung up after telling her that I would never again risk my life for Ashley. Since then, family members who turned down my request for assistance 6 years ago have been bombarding my phone with messages, accusing me of being callous and asserting that family helps family. Nathan completely agrees with my decision to uphold my boundaries. But other people argue that, since they are still family and retaliation won't mend old hurts, I should at least have a meeting with them. But this doesn't seem like vindictiveness to me. I see it as defending the life I created on my own after being deserted by those who were meant to keep me safe. Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their tremendous support and wisdom. My phone has been buzzing nonstop with messages from extended family members for the past 48 hours, which has been very taxing. The circumstances have changed in unexpected ways. My mother wrote me a long email detailing Ashley's children's daily problems, along with comprehensive pictures of my nieces and nephews. The oldest, who is currently in kindergarten, is exhibiting early behavioral problems. The second child's health issues necessitate regular medical care. Another is on the way, while the third is still a toddler. A communication from an old family friend who teaches at Ashley's old high school was what really got to me. She informed me that, in order to pay for Ashley's costs and medical bills, my parents have been taking out loans. My father has delayed his retirement indefinitely, and they have already remortgaged their home. Ashley personally sent a direct message, which was the most unexpected development. She reached out for the first time in 6 years, not to apologize, but to let her big sister know that she had changed and needed her. She talked about acknowledging her past sins and is attending therapy. Although I've seen this pattern before, I still have a part of me that wants to believe her. In order to keep both physical and emotional distance from the family, my fiancé, Nathan, proposed a compromise, providing financial support for the kids' schooling. Through a trust fund, it's an intriguing idea that would enable me to assist the defenseless kids without being embroiled in the family strife. All of this is still registering in my mind. Seeing those pictures of the children, who are innocent in all of this, has made me feel conflicted, even though my logical side knows I owe them nothing. When I make a choice about Nathan's suggestion, I'll provide another update. I need some time right now to process everything without having to deal with family pressure all the time. Update 2 continued. Over the last 24 hours, everything has drastically changed. My mother called me in an emergency last night. Ashley had been involved in a severe vehicle accident. Another automobile ran a red light and collided with her car while she was driving alone. The situation was dire because she was pregnant. I got into my car and drove to Connecticut for 4 hours without giving it any thought. It felt unreal to enter that hospital. As he paced the corridor in his faded suit, my father appeared to be much older than his years. When she saw me, my mother lost it all. I hadn't actually seen them in person for 6 years. Although Ashley's injuries were not life-threatening because of the airbags, the doctors added they had to perform an emergency C-section in order to save the baby, with a questionable prognosis. The premature baby is currently in the NICU. My biggest surprise was going back to the house I grew up in. I grudgingly complied with my parents' request that I remain rather than book a hotel. Entering my former room felt like entering a time portal. My old desk was still in its original condition. My architecture designs were still attached to the walls, and even my high school trophies were still neatly arranged. Everything was just as I had left it 6 years prior. Then it dawned on me that they hadn't actually converted my room into an area for Ashley. The whole needing the room pretext had been nothing more than a pretext. Another unanticipated emotional moment was meeting my nieces and nephews. I was astonished to hear Charlie, 6 million, the oldest, say, "Aunt Rebecca, I know you from the pictures." My parents had apparently informed them about their aunt who constructs stunning structures. In spite of everything, after I assisted them in building a block tower, the smaller ones, Ava, 4F, and Lucas, 2M, who had been timid at first, quickly warmed up. After 3 days here, I'm learning new things that make my emotions even more complicated. I discovered a stack of unsent letters from my father while searching through some old documents for Ashley's insurance information. They were letters of apology that he never mailed, all addressed to me and dated throughout the previous 6 years. Tears appeared to have soiled several of them. Yesterday, Nathan flew in to help me get through this. I became aware of how much these children deserved to be free from the chaos they were born into as I watched him engage with my nieces and nephew, using play to teach them basic engineering concepts. Ashley is still in and out of consciousness, but she is stable presently. The baby's condition is still dire. Although I've taken an emergency leave of absence, I have some important project deadlines to attend to in Boston next week. How I feel about things is still a mystery to me. My fury is still there, but it's mixed up with other feelings I can't quite put my finger on. The youngsters who somehow know about me, the preserved chamber, and the unsent letters are all making me rethink how I perceived the previous 6 years. I have to return to the hospital right now to get an update on the baby's health. Next week, when I return to Boston, I will write more. I'm just attempting to live day by day for the time being. Update 3. After spending another week in Connecticut, this time with Nathan, I just got back to Boston. It was a complex experience. Ashley asked me to invite him expressly because she wanted to meet the person who makes her sister happy. The dynamics were revealing and unpleasant. I made a startling discovery while we were there. I discovered years' worth of Ashley's treatment records while assisting my mother with organizing some medical paperwork. My parents never disclosed to me that she had been dealing with bipolar disorder since she was in her teens. Manic episodes occurred at the same time as the numerous pregnancies and relationship problems. This information adds another level of complexity to the process, but it does not justify the way they treated me. The most pivotal event occurred when I spoke with Ashley privately in her hospital room. She was more lucid than I had seen her in years, most likely as a result of taking her medications as prescribed following the accident. She acknowledged that, even in high school, she had envied my success and security. "You made everything look so easy," she stated. Felt like the family disappointment in comparison. Neither of us missed the irony. Nathan's presence proved to be quite important. I was too deeply invested to notice what he saw. One evening at supper, he pointed out that my father was unable to look me in the eye, displaying signals of intense embarrassment instead of the apathy I had always imagined. Additionally, he saw my mother's tense tendency to begin statements and then stop them quickly, seemingly out of fear of saying the wrong thing. The children now play a big role in my emotional equation. Charlie, 6 million, my oldest nephew, showed me his architectural drawings, which were sloppy but sincere attempts to replicate images of my work that my parents must have shown him. When the younger ones, Ava, 4F, and Lucas, 2M, began referring to Nathan as Uncle, it had a deeper impact on him than he anticipated. The infant will need to remain in the NICU for at least another month, although her condition has stabilized. My parents have been sleeping in the waiting area on shifts, refusing to leave their grandchildren alone. According to a nurse who spoke to us during one of our hospital stays, they appear emotionally and physically worn out. I've made some sensible choices. A family therapist with expertise in intergenerational trauma is what I'm setting up. I've also discussed working remotely for a few days every month with my company. I haven't changed my mind about returning to Connecticut, though. I now live and work in Boston. On the way back to Boston, Nathan and I had a lengthy conversation. His statement, "Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't forgiving others, it's forgiving yourself for still caring," really resonated with me. I've been feeling bad about not being able to control my rage in its purest protective form, so this really spoke to me. I have a crucial client meeting tomorrow, so I must concentrate. Strangely, at the moment, routine work duties feel both anchoring and inconsequential. After our first family therapy appointment, which is set. Update 4. Something important happened during my parents' trip to Boston last weekend, so I had to write this update. You read correctly, they traveled to Boston, ostensibly to talk about important issues pertaining to the family situation. I initially consented to meet them in a neutral setting, a peaceful cafe close to the public garden, but they persisted in touring my residence because they claimed to be interested in learning more about my life. I reluctantly consented after speaking with Nathan and establishing explicit guidelines on the length of their stay. It was surprising how they responded to my house. Normally stoic, my father broke down when he saw my architecture awards in my home office. However, their true purpose caught me completely off guard. They produced paperwork that demonstrated they had been covertly putting money aside for me ever since they expelled me. I've never witnessed my father sobbing so much in my life. He clarified that for 6 years, they had established a different savings account and contributed the amount equal to my college tuition each month. It has grown to a significant amount with interest. Their justification? They intended to leave it in their will because they were too embarrassed to deal with me personally. A fierce confrontation resulted from this revelation. I let out years' worth of suppressed rage because I could no longer contain it. "Do you think money can fix what you did?" I yelled. "I lived in my vehicle. I didn't eat. I tried to keep up my grades by working till I was worn out." My father then made a statement that really stopped me cold. "We don't expect forgiveness," he stated. "We just want you to know that your suffering has haunted us every single day." He then showed me his diary, which detailed all of my accomplishments that he had followed over the years via social media and professional networks. He mentioned my advancements, my first significant project, and even the Sustainable Design Prize I received the previous year. After sobbing quietly, my mother finally opened up about Ashley's past mental health issues. Evidently, they had observed similar behavioral tendencies in Ashley's early years but disregarded the warning signs in favor of managing me as the stable child. She acknowledged that their parenting style had been completely incorrect. When they mentioned their most recent worries, the topic of conversation changed. They disclosed that Marcus, Ashley's ex-husband, is attempting to obtain full custody of their child by using the accident and Ashley's history of mental illness, just as she is beginning to stabilize with her new medication regimen. They are concerned that this could lead to another breakdown. This is when the situation becomes complex. I'm no longer being asked to relocate back. Rather, they are asking me to assist them in locating a reputable mental health center in Boston for Ashley and the child after she is discharged from the NICU. In order to assist with the other children while Ashley receives the care she needs, they wish to sell their Connecticut home and relocate closer. Nathan, who remained close by to provide assistance if necessary, subsequently made a significant observation. They are finally acknowledging their mistakes and trying to find actual solutions instead of just dumping responsibilities on you. I'm still taking it all in. Although the money they saved doesn't change the past, their persistent covert efforts at making amends reveal a level of regret I hadn't previously thought of. My father's journal seems like a heartbreaking reminder of what might have been, a father who was proud of his daughter's accomplishments but was too embarrassed to say so out loud. To learn more about Ashley's custody dispute and what part, if any, I should play in it, I'm meeting with a family law lawyer tomorrow. Update 5. I've made some decisions regarding my relationship with my family going forward after giving it a lot of thought and attending multiple family therapy sessions. Initially, in response to my parents' inquiry concerning Ashley's care, I assisted them in locating a respectable mental health and postpartum care center in Boston. I did, however, clarify that my participation would be strictly limited and professional. Although I will not be personally involved in Ashley's daily care, I was able to connect them with the resources they needed through my professional network. My parents' savings account has been transformed into a trust fund, of which I am the trustee, for Ashley's children's education. This arrangement guarantees that the funds will be utilized suitably while upholding professional boundaries. Nathan used his financial planning and contacts to assist put things up. I never imagined how my relationship with my family would change over time. I've developed a methodical approach to keeping in touch that safeguards my personal well-being. Even if I won't be returning to Connecticut or taking on any caregiving duties, we've decided to continue family therapy sessions and have frequent video chats with the kids, with Ashley being contacted directly only in case of emergencies. Even though my mother still calls a lot, I've seen a big shift in the way she handles things. She no longer makes demands or guilt trips before providing family information, and she respects my limits when I tell her that I'm too busy to talk. My father made the most unexpected revelation. In addition to sending me a formal written apology outlining particular occasions in which he failed me as a father, he began visiting his own therapist. Instead of the cliched, "I'm sorry for everything," I had anticipated, I received a considerate acknowledgement of particular negative behaviors and how they affected my life. After being admitted to the treatment center, Ashley is beginning to show recovery at last. The infant is well and no longer in the NICU. I've made arrangements for a child psychologist to work with her older siblings to ensure they have the emotional support they need. Additionally, I'm looking into psychiatric hospitals that focus on postpartum mental health treatment. Regarding my assistance with Ashley's treatment plans, I have not responded to them. Although I have a strong desire to uphold rigid limits, I also acknowledge that this could be an opportunity for genuine structural change in our family's dynamic. This time, with the right boundaries and expert assistance, things could be different. Once I've decided how I want to participate in these new developments, I'll provide another update. Children to help them deal with these changes while I keep an emotional distance. I've decided not to include my family too much in our wedding arrangements, which Nathan and I are moving forward with. Although they will be invited as guests, friends who help me through my darkest moments will play the customary family roles in the wedding. I am content with my choices as I look to the future. It's a carefully planned relationship that safeguards my mental health while recognizing the intricacy of familial ties. Even though it's not the total reunion some might expect, I've discovered that taking care of family members doesn't have to mean compromising my own health or giving in to toxic relationships. There isn't a tidy, happy ending to my story where everything is forgiven and forgotten. Rather, it ends realistically with relationships being reframed on better terms, professional assistance being sought, and boundaries being upheld. That's the best we can do at times, and that's acceptable. My last update will be this one. We are grateful to everyone who helped and counseled us along the way. I was able to strike a balance between self-preservation and compassion because of your ideas. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.